I'll speak in English. Yeah, I'll speak so that the translators, the interpreters, can follow me. Yeah, and also you can follow me. So it's not that I'm short of ideas, but it's I'm trying to get the message across. First of all, I would like to thank for the invitation. I think it's a great opportunity to be here, and it shows, in fact, it manifests how the international, or we can say the European cooperation, how it intersects. What we've been working in the Commission for a number of years in the area of remembrance and commemoration and memory, and recently, in the last few months, we came also across the activities that the European Network of Remembrance and Solidarity is doing, and the Foundation for the Aufarbeitung der SED-Diktatur and the other organizations that are represented here. And we came, first of all, the result of this was the invitation to come here and present the activities that the Commission is supporting in the area of remembrance and memory. And secondly, also we will start a long-term cooperation with the institutions that organize the event today. The result of that will be a conference we will have in Prague in April next year, and I think many of you will be present there. Many of you, we invite you, and we hope also that you will find time and opportunity to come to Prague. So what I will talk about today, I will try to not talk too much, because it's also good to have a little bit of discussion. I would like to say, first of all, this is Saturday, so normally most people don't work on Saturday. I don't work on Saturday. That's a bad image of the European Commission, but well, there are colleagues who work also on weekends. As you see, I also work on Saturday, but normally we don't. So I'll use this opportunity to make the kind of an official introduction, and I would also like to maybe have some more personal reflection on what we have discussed yesterday and the day before, because many of the issues and many of the ideas that have been discussed here, I think, are also something that I come across in my professional and private life, and I would also like to have some comments there, and also to show that what we are doing is not just an institutional, or it's not just an official, it's not just it's not an obligation, but in fact there is a vision, there is an ambition, and there are certain underlying values and ideas that support what we do in the area of remembrance and memory in the European Commission. I come from the part of the European Commission that originally we were part of the Department on Education and Culture. With the new Commission in 2009, we have been moved to the part of the Communication Department of the European Commission, but we deal with a program that the name of which is Europe for Citizens. When the program in fact was conceived, when it was established, it was called Citizens for Europe, but when the Commissioner then, the Slovak Commissioner Figel, went to the Parliament to present the idea of the program, he was actually asked, no, it should be the other way around, and the Commission, following the advice of the people in the European Parliament, we changed the day, we changed the name of the program into Citizens for Europe. This program it's relatively a small program. It's a funding instrument. We give money, we give grants to organizations, so that's what we do. That's, I think, probably the most interesting, well, I hope not the most interesting, but it's one of the interesting things here. So we give money to projects, we give money to organizations, so they can carry their activities in different areas. The objective of the program is to develop the sense of belonging. Yeah, we also had, yesterday we heard about the sensitivities of not using identity and the identity and all the controversies that surround the identity. So we talk about sense of belonging, and we talk also about engagement and participation. There is a lot of talk about the democratic deficit and the European people not really involved in the European project, distancing themselves from Europe and from the European institutions. So the program really is to give opportunities to a wide range of organizations. These can be civil society organizations, it could be schools, it could be museums, it could be memorial institutions, it could be associations, it could be a research institution, and so to carry activities in the area of citizenship in sort of cultural and historical sense. There's a part of the program which until now was the small part of the program. It was only about 4% of the budget that we had available, the whole budget for the program for the 7 years. The programs are normally 7 years, has been over 200 million euros, and from that we had about 4 million euros for the remembrance activities. We started the program in 2007, and then the activities in the area of remembrance and memory built up. And we also came across many organizations, and also you could see, well, you see it when you come to Berlin. I mean, it's quite striking. You walk a few blocks and you see there's a memorial institution, there's a museum, there is something, there's a monument. So the issue of the remembrance and memory became more and more important at the European level. And with that also the program developed. And in reaction to that, we have now, soon we will adopt a new program which will follow up the program that ends now in 2013. And this will be a program that will start in 2014 and will go until 2020. And in reaction to what I have just said, the budget, the financial means that are available for the remembrance activities will increase. So we will go from something like a quarter of the overall budget of the program. So there will be, relatively, it will not be a huge increase, but there will be a certain increase that will allow us also to launch more activities, and also not to only support individual projects, which we have done so far, but also to launch more, to involve, to bring the organizations more into networks and into a European cooperation. We have done this already for several years. We have realized that funding the projects is one thing, but you also have to bring the people who work on these projects together for various reasons, so they can exchange ideas, they can exchange best practices, their experiences, but also because there is a need, and we have seen it, we have discussed it yesterday and during the conference, there is a need for a European cooperation. There is a need for a European dialogue, a European conversation on remembrance, on memory, on history. We can't go just in our own national spaces and discussing and debating, but we have to reach across these frontiers and these. So this is what we're also trying to do. And we started organizing what we call the networking events, where we invite usually the organizations that are funded by the program. We have done this already for 3 years. We always do it in a different European country. We have done it for 3 years. We also invite organizations that are not funded by the program. We invite also international organizations. The Yad Vashem has been mentioned here. Yad Vashem is also participating in this event. Other international organizations as well. And we also we always invite people from academia. So the idea is that you bring different people from different angles, from different perspectives, from different professional backgrounds. So you don't only have people who are practitioners or who work in education or in the memorial institutions or museums, but they also have an experience as historians or academics. And there we also tackle some of the issues that are, let's say, sensitive, the issue of memory, the issue of remembering the victims of different authoritarian regimes, etc. And with this, we're also trying to involve some other partners like we're doing here, and the event in Prague will also be one of the following of the networking when we try to also reach out to the other organizations and to other foundations that work in this area. The last word about the program, this might also interest you. We provide financing for individual projects, so you can have your projects. And we also, relative to a relatively limited amount of organizations, we also provide funding for their running costs, for their offices and salaries. And so these have to be European organizations. And again, the idea is that these organizations then will be able to carry on the European dialogue on memory and remembrance. So these are not, they're independent, that this is not the European Commission, which is superimposing a certain interpretation or a narrative or whatever, but it's just helping these organizations to also carry on the dialogue in this area. Okay, so this was the sort of more official or institutional, if you like, introduction. And now, if I may, just a few remarks on some of the issues that we have discussed here yesterday. One of the last meetings we had was with Euroclio. I think also the colleagues from Euroclio are here. We had the meeting in Erfurt. Some of you were in Erfurt. And part of the meeting was, the conference was also a visit to Buchenwald. we went to Buchenwald, and there was a young guide who was showing us around the camp. And she said something which I found very striking. She said, when I have young Germans coming here, I always give them a challenge. Yeah? I'll try to explain, they come here, they see the place, for them it's something that's maybe a little bit abstract, a little bit distant. But she said, I try to give them a challenge. And I say, from wherever place you come in Germany, try to, when you come back home, try to see in the distance of about 40 kilometers from wherever you live, to find a place where there wouldn't be a former concentration camp or a forced labor camp or a branch of a concentration camp. And she said so far, she had obviously many groups of visitors, and she said so far she didn't find anyone who would come back and say, well, there wasn't anything in 40 kilometers from where I live. So you might say, well, we live surrounded by this memory. I mean, we know about this, we can't avoid this, anywhere we go, we drive 20 minutes in a car and we come across these places. So that means, okay, we know, we are constantly reminded of the past, we can't really escape it. But do we really know? I have another example which I would like to give you, and this is an example from my own country. You're supposed to say, I don't know if you're supposed to say, but in the Commission speak you're supposed to say the country I know best, you're not supposed to associate with. Well, the country I know best is the Czech Republic, because I come from the Czech Republic. And we usually spend a month's holiday during the summer in the Czech Republic. And this summer we visited a place where my mother was born. It's a small town in kind of central Bohemia. And I read about the time I was there when I was a little boy. I don't really remember it so well. We didn't go there very often. And so we visited a cousin who lives in the village or in the small town. But I knew there was a synagogue in the town somewhere, and working now with these issues, I became interested. So I wanted to know and see where the synagogue was, because there was a big Jewish community that lived in the town before the war. So I asked my mother where the synagogue was. She had no idea. She said, well, I really don't know. So then we asked around, and then somebody told us, well, it's in the center of the town. It was actually about 100 meters from the very square of the town. So you go to the synagogue, but there's a strange thing happening, because the street that leads to the synagogue is not called a synagogue street. The name of the street is Cinema Street. Strange thing, huh? And then the synagogue is closed. You go there, it's quite a grandiose building, it's big, there was a big community, there's no one left anymore, but it's empty, you cannot go in. So then I went to Google. When I came back, I was Googling, so what was the history of this building? Well, the history of the building was that it was built in the mid-19th century, when there was a quite, striving and Jewish community. In 1942, the Jews are deported, and the building becomes a Protestant church. This was, and then I look also, and this apparently was a practice that was not very uncommon. A lot of these, some of these synagogues in 40s, they became Protestant churches. You had something after the 1918 in Czechoslovakia. You had a Protestant movement which was related to the new country, to the new state. It was called the Czechoslovak Hussite Church. So you had all the symbols there. And many of these Czechoslovak Hussite churches, they were called then the Czech and Moravian Hussite Church under the German occupation. They took these synagogues and used them as their churches. So you have the synagogue that in 42 becomes a Protestant church. But then the history goes on. In 1968, the building becomes a cinema. So from 68, the synagogue is a cinema. And then later, 1980s, 1989, comes, people have televisions, they have their video recorders, and so the cinema is closed, and the building is closed until now, and it's slowly falling into disrepair. So that's what it shows. I mean, it shows we live surrounded by the history, but we don't really know the history, or we know different histories, we have different memories. If I ask my mother what the building was, I mean, I realize I asked her a wrong question. I shouldn't ask her where was the synagogue, I should have asked her where was the cinema, and then she would have pointed me to the right building. If I ask my grandmother's generation, she would refer to the building as a church, as a Protestant church. She was a Catholic, but she would refer to it as a church. And if I wanted to ask someone what this building originally was built for, I would have nobody to ask, because there are no Jews who live in the town anymore. So we have a problem here, because we're talking about memory, we're talking about remembrance, but we live in a situation where some of the main protagonists of these events, they're no longer there. They can't speak really. So we live surrounded by these monuments, but we don't have all the witnesses. This, I think, leads also to something that we have discussed here quite a lot, and I think the exhibition we saw in the museum yesterday, which is called the Diversity Destroyed. This is this cinema that becomes a synagogue that becomes a cinema, is a diversity destroyed. And it's not only a diversity destroyed, you can also, I mean, there are all these questions about Holocaust and is it a modern phenomenon, or, how, but it's also a question about, and I think especially in Central Europe, it's a question about modernity. What is modernity? What is modern? Modern is cinema, but it's a cinema in a synagogue. So it's a modernity that destroys diversity. That I think is something that you can extend to many of the countries, especially in Central and Eastern Europe. So the modernity comes with the destruction of diversity. Diversity disappears. We also spoke about the homogenization yesterday, the people's democracies. Where is the link? And there is a link here. This is the link. This is where you destroy the diversity. It's not you who is doing it. It might be that people are deported, but a few months after you go to their synagogue and you pray to whoever the Christian God, and you have no problem with that. It's okay, because it's your space, it's your mental space. You take that space because it belongs to you, and then you take more and more, until you're left alone. So I think this is the legacy we have also in Central and Eastern Europe, and in Europe, destroying the diversity. We have also the other kind of future ambition, or the future, I would say, promise, almost. And this is recreating the diversity. This is united in the diversity again. It was also mentioned yesterday, saying, okay, we have the united in diversity. It's an official slogan of the European Union. Is it something that is realistic? Is it something that we just say because it sounds like a nice slogan? But I think it comes from here. It's something that we really had, and something that we lost, and something that we're trying to recreate. What we had, the diversity we had also, was the diversity of in isolation. It was diversity that not united us, but diversity that divided us. If you look at the history of, again, Central Europe, but many other countries as well, you see. Well, when I talk about the country I know best, you look at these countries, and you see, okay, there are Germans living there, and the Jews living there, and the German-speaking Jews living there, and the Czechs living there, and so, but they hardly ever communicate. They live in their own universe. They have their own cinema. They have their own theaters. They have their own clubs. They have their own associations. There's hardly ever any place where they meet together. Not only that, each of them, or many of them, they also have the ambition to dominate the place of these others. They say, okay, my culture is superior, so and this means also my political project is superior. What we're trying to do in Europe is to have two things. Well, first of all, is trying to have a conversation. I mean, if we have diversity, we can't have diversity in isolation. We should have the diversity in communication, in conversation, in dialogue, in debating, in exchanging. And this goes very much for the memory and remembrance. And secondly, we should have, and this is for me, this is the European project. It's a project that we try not to destroy the diversity, and as a result of that, create a political unity or create a political system. But what we're trying to do here is to use the diversity to have a political project that would not be based on a dominance of a certain culture or a certain way of thinking or a certain way of commemorating or a certain way of behaving, but it's a political project that respects all these cultures and that takes them as the ground for creating something that indeed unites the people. What unites the people I think, and this is what we mentioned also yesterday, is the values. Yeah. And I would like to use, I'm now at the end of my presentation, I would like to use two quotes, well, two quotes really. Yeah. The first quote, and again, I apologize that I'm using some of the Czech examples, but I'm trying also to, as you can see, to kind of extend it to more general level. But the first quote comes from Karel Čapek. Yeah? I don't know if you know Karel Čapek. He was a writer in the 1930s. He was very much associated with the First Republic, the golden age for the Czechs. The years between the war, 1918 to 1938, is the golden age. That's when everyone has their golden age. So our golden age is this. There are many questions. Was it really golden age? Were there any seeds of destruction in there? And as we can see, the example I gave is the synagogue. There must have been something. But okay, for us, this is the sacred golden age. Karel Čapek was very much associated with the First Republic, with the democracy, with the values of humanism, the values of democracy. In 1938, the Czechoslovak Broadcasting Corporation, the radio, they make an appeal. This is when, in 1938, they start for the first time also broadcasting in German. The Czechoslovak radio, even though we had many nationalities there, did not broadcast in German until 1938. And then the situation becomes very critical in 1938, so you have broadcasting in German also to counteract the propaganda and so. And he makes a message to his German compatriots. And his message, he says, well, I'm now broadcasting this message to you, and you're only a few kilometers away from me, but the distance between you and me is more than between Prague and Australia. You live in completely different mental space, you live in a completely different universe. Karel Čapek then, the same year, you know what happens, the Munich Agreement was mentioned here, he dies in his 40s, and his death is kind of a symbol of the end of the Czechoslovak democracy in 1938 and the end of the dream that we can live together united in diversity. That's then the other events follow. The second quote is from somebody who was, we could say, an adversary of Čapek. He was a Catholic poet. He was also very well known at that time in Czechoslovakia. It was a secular country, but then you had this limited movement of Catholic writers. And he, Jan Zahradníček, in 1938, when after the Munich Agreement, he criticized there was this whole move towards more authoritarian, based on Christian values, what you have in Le Pen, la patrie, la famille, la travail. So you have that also a little bit there in Czechoslovakia. And he's very much criticizing Čapek. He's saying, well, there's all these liberals, all these Jews, and so it's very anti-Semitic. It's against democracy. It's against the liberal values. It's we have to have traditional values. We have to have national values. We have to have unity. We Czechs have to stick together. We have to now been betrayed by all the others. So we just care about ourselves. Nobody else is important, and we stay together. In 1950s, he is tried in one of the big trials with the Catholic intelligentsia. He is put into prison. He was handicapped, so it was especially difficult for him. And he spent a number of years, almost I think it was 8 years, he spent in prison. He's released in 1960. He dies soon after because of the effects of the imprisonment. During his time in prison, he writes a book. He writes a poetry book that's published first abroad and in the Samizdat illegally, and then it's published also later in the 1990s. The last poem and the last verse that he has there says, "We lost so much, we hope so much." I don't know how you can interpret that. I hope that in "we lost so much," he also includes Karel Čapek, whom he criticized in 1938. That would be the kind of dream interpretation, that he realized we lost so much. All this is lost. The synagogue has now become a church and a cinema. These people are gone. Karel Čapek is gone. We are here with diversity destroyed. But at the same time, we hope so much. We're not giving up the hope. We're hoping that we can carry on and we can somehow make it better. And the very last, it's not a really last quote, but the last, what I would like to mention, being in Germany, is Immanuel Kant. And he also says, is there a hope? It's one of the, the moral values. What are the moral values? How shall we live? And do we have a hope? And the moral values that he puts are universal values. They're cosmopolitan ideas. They're not national values. And I think these ideas and these values should be the guiding spirit also of the European integration, the European project, and also any deliberation, any discussion, any debate in the area of remembrance and European memory. Thank you for the attention.